And now, the best 60-ish seconds of your week.
It's officially summer, and you know that makes me a very happy man. The best season of the year, and although it's been a little oppressive in heat this week, it still beats mid-February. And as it turns summer, the campaign is really starting to heat up. And this coming week we have a debate, earlier than any of the presidential debates in modern history. It's going to be a very, very fascinating time. And next week, we'll get an opportunity to do a review of what happened at that debate. But you know, the run-up is always kind of interesting, too. The expectation game has so much to do with the run-up. And bluntly, the expectation game for Joe Biden is very, very low. I mean, the bar is basically on the floor. People are saying that if he doesn't drool out of the corner of his mouth, that he somehow has succeeded. This debate's going to have some interesting peculiarities, though. They're not going to be permitted to take notes to the stage. Their mics are going to be cut off when they're not speaking. And in my judgment, that gives Donald J. Trump some real advantages because he's able to articulate his message without reading from a teleprompter or off of a card. And the fact that he's not going to be able to instantaneously rebut everything that Joe Biden says gives Joe Biden enough political rope to hang himself. I mean, the more Biden talks, the worse it's going to be for him. His record can't be defended. So what's he going to say? He's going to pivot back to, you know, inflation was 9% when I took office and all of this nonsense that's easy to fact check. And I think if President Trump comes to the debate simply prepared to fact check a little bit and to let Joe go, he's going to do exceptionally well. The record is on his side. The American people know it. He speaks their values. He speaks their truth. And it's going to be, I think, a very good evening for President Trump. One other quick note, since we last spoke, Joe Biden comes out with his DACA announcement. I mean, this is classic triangulation, or better yet, distraction, political distraction. He admitted in the course of his unveiling this new plan that it's got nothing to do with what's going on right now, i.e. people streaming across the southern border in droves, even under his new executive order, which allows a wide open gate before the provisions even kick in. What has happened at the southern border is a tragedy of unparalleled proportion, brought on exclusively because of the Biden administration policies and Mayorkas and Harris, the border czar, by extension. And the American people know it. And so to say, ooh, over here, shiny object, instead of focusing on the real problem that the American people see, is not only a political miscalculation, it is an abject policy failure. Mark 2 up for the Biden administration just in recent days. But it proves that they're worried about the border issue. They know that it's causing them political harm. Their chickens are coming home to roost. They don't like it. The American people don't like what's been going on, and we all deserve better. And if you needed any proof that it really is summer, here it is, the summer reading list. List number 1. I'll give us another list a little bit later, maybe pre-Labor Day to get through the Labor Day blues, etc. But for now, as people head down to the shore or up to the mountains, the first of the summer reading lists. Being just a couple of weeks away from the beginning of the presidential nominating conventions, I thought ballots and bandwagons was a good place to start. Ralph G. Martin's tome about the nominating process and the contested conventions of years past. He served on Adlai Stevenson's team and was part of those great Democrat fights in 1952 and 1956. Written in 1964, 60 years ago, it was before the tumultuous 1976 Republican contest between Ronald Reagan and Gerald Ford and the 1980 brawl between Jimmy Carter and Ted Kennedy. But an interesting read. And by one vote, the disputed presidential election of 1876, the closest election in American history, decided by a single electoral vote. Rutherford B. Hayes, although he didn't take the popular vote, wins the Electoral College vote and takes the presidency from Samuel Tilden. This one you can't miss. A real iconic book, long ago on our best list for the summer, John Adams, the biography by David McCullough, who passed away a couple of years ago. Great author. He had a summer home in a little town near where my parents lived up in Maine. They put a sign in front of the library as he passed that said, We're going to miss your stories. This is one of his best. And a gift to me earlier this year, The Demon of Unrest by Eric Larson. Great author who wrote The Splendid and the Vile. Some of you remember that being on the summer reading list once upon a time. This is the story of Fort Sumter and the beginning of the Civil War, written like a novel, but true history, and really, really a page turner if you're sitting on the beach with nothing to do but read and enjoy. And finally, the best 2,548 things anybody ever said. You know, folks look at our morning briefing and they say, where the heck do you come up with all these quotes? This is one of the sources. Every Sunday night, I take a few minutes to go through the week and come up with what I hope are interesting, humorous, but serious quotes for living life and enjoying it, and that is one of the best sources I've found. I've got a large volume of quote books, but I think you'd enjoy that one. Don't have to read it cover to cover, but you'll glean an awful lot from it. The world this week mourned the loss of the great Willie Mays. You know, we always try to take a moment at the end of the best 60 seconds to speak about those that have passed on during the past week, but Willie Mays requires just a couple more than a second. This man was truly phenomenal. He came to the major leagues just a couple of years after Jackie Robinson broke the color barrier, came basically straight out of high school, had to endure some really, really tough things, and yet played the game with such greatness and as a human being showed us how to live. I was blessed and privileged to actually see him play early in his career down at old Connie Mack Stadium. I had an opportunity later in life to meet him personally, as great off the field as he was on. And most people, when they think of Willie Mays, think of the catch, that famous now 70-year-old catch in dead center field, running at 90 feet at about 14 or 15 miles an hour with his back to the plate, making the over-the-shoulder catch of a drive by Vic Wertz that would have been a home run in most other ballparks or parts of that park, and wheeling around and making the throw back. I mean, just absolutely phenomenal. Without any question, the greatest single play in baseball history. And there would be a long and I'm sure very, very animated and heated argument over who was the greatest baseball player of all time. But certainly Willie Mays is in that discussion, and I'd be happy to take his case in that fight. Might not win, because there certainly are some other folks that make a great case for being the greatest of all time, but Willie Mays certainly was in the running, and a great man off the field as well. May he rest in peace. His memories will be with us forever.
Say Willie, say hey, say who? Swinging at the plate, say hey, say who? Say Willie, that giant kid is great. When he hits the ball, it's long gone man. Hits it farther than can begin. Swings the bat like a little lead pipe. When they reach the ball, it's overripe. Say hey, say who? Say Willie, say hey, say who? Swinging at the plate, say hey, say who? Say Willie, that giant kid is great. He runs the bases like a choo-choo train. Swings around second like an aeroplane. His cap flies off when he passes third, and he heads home like an eagle bird. Say hey, say who? Say Willie, say hey, say who? Swinging at the plate, say hey, say who? Say Willie, that giant kid is great. Yes, he covers center like he had jet shoes. The other batters get the Willie blues. Anything hit his way is out. Man, it just don't pay those guys to clout. Say hey, say who? Say Willie, say hey, say who? Swinging at the plate, say hey, say who? Say Willie, that giant kid is great.